Well, guys, I stole her for one more video. So we're going to talk about lipedema. Did I say it right?
Yes.
All right. So I know a little bit about it, but I think you know a lot about it. So I'm going to just hand it over to you. Go.
Okay.
Tag.
Thank you. So my name is Kathleen Lisson. I'm a certified lymphedema therapist and board certified massage therapist practicing in San Diego, California. And what we learned about in our training as certified lymphedema therapists was about another disease. It's very underdiagnosed in America. It's more diagnosed in Germany and in Europe, and it's called lipedema. It's Lipedema. So if you talk about it to your doctor, he or she will likely be like, you mean lymphedema? And it's like, no, it's lipedema. It's actually a fat disorder. So I am going to share some resources with you. But first I want to just talk more about what lipedema is and why it's important and why we're sharing it during lymphedema month.
Exactly.
So lipedema has its own month, but it's kind of like, if no one knows what it is, like no one really cares outside of the people who know that they have lipedema. So why we learned about lipedema in my training as a certified lymphedema therapist is they did a survey in the Foldi clinic, which is in Germany, which is like the preeminent clinic for treating lymphedema in the world. And they found that 10% of the clients who came in for lymphedema also had a lipedema diagnosis. So this is, it's called a pre-lymphatic condition. So often cases of lipedema, if left unchecked, will become lipolymphedema, or both lipedema and lymphedema together. So people were coming into the Foldi clinic, and I think in America, I think they've looked at it in different clinics, and it's stayed solid at about 10-11% of clients who have lymphedema also have lipedema. But if you go to the vast majority of doctors, they will look at you and say you have obesity, because it's like rare enough that like no one knows about it, and that they'll just say like diet and exercise harder.
Right. And if you have lipedema, it's normally your hips and your thighs and your legs. So from here up, you may look teeny tiny, but then when you stand up, you have these huge hips and legs. And a lot of people that have it just feel guilty. I've been to the gym, I'm eating right, and there's nothing you can do. If I understand correctly, please jump in and correct me anytime. But you can't just, eating right isn't going to change anything. I mean, obviously it's going to help your overall health, but it's when you go to a doctor and the doctor basically says, well, you need to go on a diet, you need to lose weight, you're just being lazy.
Yeah.
And then you're like, but I'm not.
Yep. Yeah.
Why can't I lose weight like other people? What is going on?
Yeah. So what will happen is and first of all, like not much is known about this disease at all. It was first described by Allen and Hines in the Mayo Clinic in 1940, and there's not much more. Like we don't know if it's genetic. We know it probably runs in families. It's predominantly, overwhelmingly women. It starts in puberty, so we're thinking there might be something with estrogen. And so to kind of think about the different things that are all in a line with lipedema. So kind of, if any of this rings a bell, and you or your family members, like you said, it's the bottom half, like below the belly button, is affected at first, and then eventually it can spread to the whole entire body. But the average, like the classic presentation is like I take a small in a shirt and I take an extra large in a pant.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to find anything to fit, because this lipedema fat, which is different from regular adipose tissue, will go down all the way sometimes to the ankle, and the foot will be unaffected. So there'll be a cankle appearance, or even like this roll of fat, like right at there. And if it affects the arm, it'll be the roll of fat that will end with the hand.
So does it sometimes affect the upper body as well? It's just more common in the lower body?
Yep. So if you have it, and then it really progresses, some of it progresses.
So it always starts in the lower body and then progresses?
some people only have it. There's like 4 or 5 types.
Right.
And so some types are even, and people have palpated, and the tissue itself feels different, and they can find it up, even up in the scalp area. So the tissue, usually the first test that they will do will be around here, and then also around the knees, and the tissue feels like, my friend here, a Beanie Baby. So if you feel, there's little pellets in there. So you'll feel that there are little pellets.
Little pellets, so when you...
Underneath the skin. Yeah, which is like necrotic fat tissue. It'll also be, the skin texture will be like a mattress, like an orange peel, like a really bad case of cellulite. And cellulite, as I've done more research, cellulite is like lymphatic related condition. It's not like, we think it's benign, and in most women, like, that's as far as it gets, but it really is. It can be helped with extensive lymphatic work, cellulite. So I used to think like that is the biggest case of, like, people are stealing money from women, like, cellulite is natural, why are you doing all these things? But the things do actually help, because it's a little bit of an impairment of the lymphatic system, cellulite. So, but lipedema is like far worse. It's the entire leg. There'll also be pain. So even there was a story of a lady, and it would be like the little dog jumps on her lap, and she really doesn't like that because it's painful, and no one understands, because everyone else, that's not painful, and like, until she understands that she has lymphedema, she doesn't understand either how everyone else can stand, because when you're in your body, you think everyone's body is like that, right?
Exactly.
Especially if it's in your family. There's also a lot of bruising, because there's a capillary fragility. There's also a vein involvement. So she'll look like a clutch. She'll look like she must have, fall all the time, because she gets these bruises, and that's unusual. And then, like we said, a lot of people will call her a liar, because you can have the strictest eating, and exercise program, and this type of fat is not adipose tissue that can be remodeled with diet and exercise at all. And people will actually, they'll starve themselves.
Right, because they feel guilty and they hate their body.
They'll like lose inches here and here, and they won't lose inches on their leg. And that should be, you would think that would be
a sign enough.
Someone, someone saying, I think there's actually something wrong with you, and let's you look at it, but it's not. Because, and this is my other little thing, here's my little petri dish, here's your adipocyte, here's your little fat cell. And your doctor thinks all fat cells are the same.
So he thinks a fat cell is a fat cell.
Diet and exercise and you can remove these fat cells. But some fat cells are different.
I don't suffer from this that I know of, but I have been told with the lymphedema, I've been told by doctors before I was diagnosed that, fat cells are fat cells. Don't tell me that you can't do it. You're just being lazy. You're not, blah, blah, blah. And that's devastating when people that follow me know that I eat raw vegan. I eat almost all raw vegan, and I have for 2 years. And I'm not the size you are, because my body's built differently.
Yes. And I think that's really important. And then the BMI chart is a lie, and people have different body shapes. And I think we don't understand that. And the whole world, like our whole culture, is trying to press everyone into the fact that if I'm this height and weight, that everyone who's my height should have to be my weight.
Right. And I'm very comfortable in my body. I'm like, well, this is the size I was in high school. I've been bigger, I've had problems, and, I've been like, but I'm like, this is my body, I don't have a crazy exercise routine, but maybe, 10 pounds. If I lost another 10 pounds, that would be about all I could reasonably do. And, and I finally came to the realization that this is me, and I know that I eat healthy. I know that I exercise a little bit. I know that, that I treat my body better than I've ever treated it in my life. And this is what it wants to look like. So who am I?
Well, it's natural. That's your natural body. Yeah.
And so
it's hard for a lot of people, especially when they're in this culture that's focused on, like, I have done the most wonderful thing with my Instagram, and that is my Instagram by default was like a lot of pictures of like 22-year-old white women in bikinis who were a certain size, and you can find 1,000 of those profiles.
Yeah.
But I follow a lot of people on purpose now that are body positive, that show their bodies, and they have all different types of bodies, just like the natural variety of bodies in the world. And that has changed my interior dialogue to when I see people on the street.
Exactly.
It's not the culture that I was born into. It's the culture that I choose to be a part of.
And I always thought that body shaming only happened to bigger girls. But body shaming happens to little, petite women as well. Because I know I have a friend, and at work they're like, well, you don't eat enough. What's wrong? What do you eat? And they said to me, what do you think would happen to me if I came to them and said, ooh, you're really fat. What do you eat? It would be horrible, but yet it's okay for them to say, ooh, you're really skinny. What do you eat? So body shaming happens to everyone.
And the interesting, and I've only seen, I saw it for the past 20, I've been vegetarian for about 18 years.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I eat fish, sometimes I don't. But I used to think people were interested in my diet because they were interested in saving the environment, because that's why I'm interested in eating the way I am. And it really dawned on me that people are asking the way I eat because they think that's the reason why I am the size that I am. And I have to be very specific with people now and say, like, sometimes, like, I ate 10 pieces of chocolate and a glass of hot chocolate last night. And guess what? Like, I'm not going to get fat. And if I stop eating and start running a lot, like, there's only however many pounds. And, like, because this is the body that I was given. And it has nothing to do with diet or exercise.
Right.
It really doesn't.
And I'm not condoning going out and eating McDonald's and eating crap. But what I'm saying is you shouldn't think that you should accept your body for what it is. And eat healthy. Give your body the nutrition it needs to do what it needs to do, because your body was designed to heal itself. You get a cut, what happens? It closes itself up, and it heals. You get a cold, what happens? And they come and attack the virus, and it goes away. Your body is designed to heal itself, but if all we give it is McDonald's, then it's got no nutrition to work. So I'm a big advocate that yes, you have to eat healthy, but you eat healthy to be healthy, not to be a size 0 or, whatever it is in your mind that you think you should be.
Yeah.
You have to love your body and be okay with what you've got to work with, because that's you.
Yeah, and especially with lipedema, the body size is different than the public says is acceptable.
Exactly. And that's just as tough as having one swollen limb, to have your hips and both legs swollen. I mean, that's just as, as much body shaming that goes on. So
Yeah. So in the doctor's office, I would like to show you this resource. It's called Lipedema, the Disease They Call Fat. Someone needs glasses, as you can see. So this is a wonderful book. It's available on Amazon and wherever books are sold. It has a lot of high-profile authors, and it's written for doctors. And this is great overview of what lipedema is. So if you are seeking a lipedema diagnosis, if you've heard what I've said and you've done some research and you think this might be something that's happening to you in your family, this is a resource that you can give to your doctor and say, like, read this and then let's talk about a diagnosis.
And don't be afraid to do that. Because when I was first diagnosed, my family practitioner had no idea what that was. Mm-hmm. I was actually diagnosed by one of my clients. He was a foot doctor, and I was doing his engagement pictures. And afterwards he's like, I'm sorry, to ask, but I've noticed your left leg is much larger than your right leg. What's going on? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, you need to come into my office. Yeah. And so I went to the office, and he had just came back from Florida where he had a seminar, and he learned about lymphedema, and he was like, oh my God, you've got to get this taken care of. It's so serious, blah, 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 blah. And so he wrote this out, and I took my paper to my doctor, and my doctor's like, never heard of it. What do you want me to do? And, so, every step of the way, I would do my research. I would talk to people on Lymph World, on my, chat room. And, we would all, and then we go try it. Hey, and I would go to my doctor and say, this is what you need to do. This is what we need to do. And doctors actually, if you have a decent doctor at all, if you handed this doctor this book and said, listen, I've been doing research on this. You need to read this and highlight some things that that pertain to you particularly. Yeah. So, put little Post-its in it, whatever you need to do. Yeah. But don't be afraid to give your doctor suggestions. Yeah. I used to think that when your doctor told you something, you had to do it. You don't. Your health is your responsibility. Yes. Your doctor and you should have a conversation. Yes. And you make the decision. Yes. Because I did a lot of things because my doctor told me to do it. I took a lot. I was addicted to Percocet for a while because I was in pain, and so he just kept writing me for Percocet. Yeah. I mean, a lot of things happened, because the doctor said do it, and I did it. Yeah. And then finally I came to the realization that, no, my health, my. I come to you, I ask you questions, I go to my doctor, I ask him questions, I balance it out, and I make the decision. Don't be afraid. It's your body, it's your life. So don't be afraid to tell your doctor stuff, and be nice, but don't be afraid to do that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great idea.
And then sometimes what may happen is your doctor sends you to a specialist, which is great. Like if your doctor doesn't feel like, so a vascular doctor may be a really good reference, because what I've heard from a lot of people is like lipedema is not a real disease, it's an internet disease. This book has definitely helped to kind of legitimize and give doctors some research. But if you have a vascular doctor, a vascular surgeon, in this book, starting on page 321, they have 3 chapters on lipedema, and this is also some information that you can show your doctor, especially your vascular doctor, because it's not like a crazy publisher, it's McGraw-Hill education, right? So it's like a realistic, legitimate book. Yeah. So that's great, and I guess I just want to throw 2 other things out real quick, and I love, this is a specific Beanie Baby. It is the Zebra Beanie Baby, because one of the things that I've heard from different patients is like most diseases are like horses, and I hope it's horses and zebras, and then occasionally you'll get where it's not a horse, it's a zebra. I think it's a horse. Yeah. But have you heard
No, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, so like there's always like the outlier, that's the chronic disease that is something more rare. Right. So they'll use the symbol of zebra for like a rare disease. For a rare sometimes disease. It is a zebra. And then have you heard of spoon theory? No. I was teaching spoon theory last weekend too. This is wonderful. So this started, there's a lady who had lupus, and we can put the link to her original post in here so you can read more about spoon theory. But she had lupus, and she was having dinner with her best friend, and they were, having a normal conversation, and then her best friend said something that I think that all best friends have inside of them, like, how does it feel to live with what you have with the chronic illness. Right. And she was like, do I, if I can repeat the story right, like, do I kind of parry off the question and be like, oh, it's okay, rainbow, sunshine, thinking positive? Or she's like, can I really dig deep and show what it is? And obviously she did, since now it's like something that a lot of people know. She grabbed the silverware from around her on the tables, and she she had, I think, a dozen spoons. And she's like, which is why it's called spoon theory. She's like, you have this, and she gives her the spoons. She's like, you give me 1 spoon for everything you have to do today. You have to get up. You have to decide which clothes can fit you this day, because your body is
changes every day.
Yeah, it changes every day.
I have Sharpie markers on the inside of like big jeans, tight jeans. Yeah. Because, go on.
Yeah. And are you taking care of a family member? Do they need to get up and off school? Do you need to be able to drive and navigating the car, navigating the traffic with the chronic illness that you have? And then you go into work, what kind of projects there are. And so they're taking the spoons away, and all of a sudden, like, she has like 1 or 2 spoons left, and it's like, you have to go home, and there's these things that you have to do in the evening. And she's like, well, I need the best friends. Well, like, I need more spoons. And she's like, that's it.
There's no more
spoons. Like, there are no, if you have a chronic illness, and my mother had lupus, like, there are no spoons. And that's something that someone who is blessed with my life doesn't even have to think about spoons. I can get up and do whatever I want, and I don't have to plan out my day for how much energy I have left, and do I have enough energy to drive myself home at night?
Right. And
then if I steal some spoons for tomorrow, if I keep on pushing myself, you're going to be in bed the next day.
So this is something, this is the isolating part of it, because people don't understand that feeling. I get up, I've shared this before, I get up, I shower, I do my chi machine, I do my massage, I put my garment on. Now, every once in a while, Merrick's like, hey, we don't have anything going on today. Let's just lay in bed today, babe. We don't have to be there for an hour. Like, just, I can't do that. Because if I choose to do that, then I've chosen to not chi and not massage, and I just throw on a garment, and I may make it through most of the day, but I'm going to feel it. I'm going to be more tired. I'm going to be more, Yeah. And so it's always juggling, what am I willing to, to not do so that I can do something else that somebody else doesn't even have to think about.
Yeah.
And drinking, let's go out and drink. Okay, this is a plan. This is going out and having a couple of drinks with friends is a week-long plan for me, because I have to make sure everything else is perfect, because I know that alcohol is going to flare me up. But if everything is in really good, then it probably won't be a flare. I won't swell that much. I'm not going to be in that much pain. I can probably get through it. Other people have hangovers. I have a sore leg for a couple of days. So you have to balance this all out.
Yeah.
What other thing? So, that's a good analogy. And, and that's the isolating thing, because when you're like, oh, everybody's out having fun, and I'm like, oh no, I'm driving today. I can have fun sober. And deep down, I'm like, gosh, that'd be nice to just not have to think about.
Yes.
Yeah. And not have to make, excuses and be the smiley, oh, I'm fine all the time. Yeah. And know that when you get home, you still have to, massage and do all your nightly care for your leg, even if you're, and then heaven forbid you don't get enough sleep, because there again, you have to juggle, well, I want to stay up late, but then the next day, how is that going to affect me? Mm-hmm. And I think we talked about this before we went on camera. But one thing about lymphedema, and I'm sure lipedema, is it feels, isolating, especially with lymphedema, because I hid my leg for years. Mm-hmm. I hid it. Nobody knew. 2 years ago when I came out and told my whole story on video, the reason I did that is because this young woman had said that she's always hid it. Her close family members knew, but no one else. Even people, that she was close friends with didn't know. That was just her look. She wore the baggy jeans, and she went and she came out and she had like a boudoir session taken of her body, and she went out and she goes, here, this is me. And she kind of had this coming out, with lymphedema. Yeah. And I'm like, just bawling. I mean, I can't even, because I know what that feels like. And I think, boy, I tell people, all this stuff, and I'm all this, and I'm like, I don't have the guts to do that. Not even close. And I'm like, I've never told people my story. I'm like, oh yeah, I have lymphedema, blah, blah, blah. It's like, next, you know. And so when I went out and, told my whole story and, showed pictures of my leg, I mean, what I found was I'm really not as alone as I thought I was. Yeah. And, I just put up a video a little while ago about the Lymphedema Treatment Act. And that's one of the things that keeps fighting against us, is because nobody wants to stand up and say, hey, that's me and I need help. Instead, we all hide it. And we don't want to be embarrassed, or we don't want to admit it, or we don't want to get treatment, or we don't, even though we know it's a life sentence, we don't want the doctor to actually say it, so we just avoid it. So I think it was so freeing for me when I started openly talking about it. I go out, I wear dresses, and I have my garment, and once in a while people will say, what happened? And I'll smile. And normally I just say, oh, I have lymphedema, and just go on. And I'm like, if they care, they'll Google it, you know. But sometimes it brings up a conversation, and it's something that's beneficial. Sometimes it's just, I'll just smile and say, and move on. But I realize that I don't have to be embarrassed of it. And even though I was horrified that everybody's going to be looking at my leg, and, I realized that really nobody cares that much about my leg. Like, I'm the only one that thinks everyone's looking at me. Everybody else is doing their own thing.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly. So when I broke that barrier down, it was so freeing to just be like, well, thank God for Juzo, because I have an amazing, comfortable garment that fits me great, and I can stay active, and I can wear a dress. I can wear shorts. I mean, I have pretty discolored legs, but that's okay. I should say uncolored. Like, my legs are really white, pasty. Because pasty white.
Pasty.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But I think that's the one thing, is to realize you're not alone. And when you just step up and say, screw it, it is what it is. It's my body. It's the only body you're ever going to have.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
So this has been really fun.
I'm glad. Yeah.
So I got a bonus. You guys all got a bonus. We thought we were going to do one video, and we did 3.
Yay!
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And it's always good. Again, I know we didn't talk about it in this video, but again, I'm going to put the link to your book, because I really think people need to read it. It's amazing. And thank you so much. Happy Lymphedema Month. All right.